Let's go ahead and talk about deauthorization. I think if a lot of employees certainly don't understand what that process is. Rick, will you want to start and explain what deauthorization is for us?
Yeah, all deauthorization is, Dan, is that when in a closed shop state, and all that's saying is that you have the right to negotiate a union security clause, and it doesn't mean that the company has to accept that or has to agree to that in contract negotiations. And all that's saying is that we're going to the workers want to take that clause out of the contract. And that's just saying that as a condition of employment that they have to pay dues. And by the way, Dan, in a deauthorization petition, you do not have to wait a certain time. You can file that deauthorization petition at any point in the contract. You don't have to wait. There's not a specific time like in a decertification, so many days prior to the expiration of the contract. Deauthorization can be filed at any time during the term of the contract.
So in a closed state shop where employees, by contract, if they have a union security clause, they are mandated by agreement to be compelled to pay dues.
Yeah.
But again, in a deauthorization, they are not necessarily represented by the union?
No, they're represented by the union, Dan. But is when they're represented by the union and they have a contract and they have a union security clause, and what's that saying is that the workers have collectively come together to say that we want to take that clause out of the contract, and that's what it is. Just all it's saying is that as a condition of employment, we do not have to pay dues. I mean, you don't have to be a member. The union can't compel you to be a member, but with a union security clause, they can compel you to pay dues. And all that's saying is, as a condition of employment, we don't have to pay dues. So it's almost making it like a right to work state.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we've had a chance to talk about before where even though employees may have a legal right to decertify or deauthorize, there's a challenge here, especially if they become a card-holding member of the union. Would you all mind explaining what could be the challenge to the employee being a union member with their requirement or obligation as far as the union rules?
Yeah,
absolutely. And actually, yesterday I was reading the Constitution. It's all based on the Constitution of this particular union. And when they were talking about trials and appeals, it says that one of the violations would be gross disloyalty attendant on becoming a union member. I mean, I was having actually a meeting with these employees, and the employees were asking me, what does that mean? And I said, I don't know. And that is the point. And then I said, actually, I don't know exactly what it means. But one of the things that I know it means is that if you either desauthorize, file for deauthorization or decertification, that is for sure a violation of that clause in the Constitution. So they're going to get a lot of pressure because they're violating the Constitution, and they're going to get a lot of pressure for the union, period, including the stewards, the people that are inside their particular bargaining unit, and that pressure is enormous. We know it's huge. We know that the union is not going to just sit down and allow any group of employee or either deauthorize it or decertify the union, which is even worse.
Oh, wow. Well, hold on one second there, Ahmed. Let me make sure I understand what you're trying to tell me. You have a union member who has joined the union. They have voted in the union. They now have a union contract. They have a legal right by federal law to remove that union. Are you telling me now they could all of a sudden be held in some kind of trial or court to kick out the union?
Well, let me jump in, Dan. First of all, the Act, the National Labor Relations Act, gives members the right to decertify or deauthorize from a union. But it also gives the union the right to uphold its constitution and international and local bylaws. Okay, so but what they do say, and this is where it gets tricky, what the Act, the National Labor Relations Act says, that if someone is in violation of the Constitution by trying to decertify the unit, that they can be brought up on charges, but they can be punished, but they cannot be monetarily punished. They can be punished in other ways. But if you think about it, in a closed shop state, if it's up to expelling them from the membership and they don't pay dues, then it could eventually possibly lead to them losing the job if they don't pay dues. So there's a lot of things that can happen, but once again it gets complicated. It gets complicated when you talk to workers. Now there's one way that workers, just like in the past, I was a strike director, and one of the things that they could do is prior to working on a decertification, prior to it, just like prior to a strike, they could even if in a closed shop state, they could write a letter to the local and to the international and request or demand that they are released from membership. They'll still have to pay dues, but they no longer want to be a member. Okay, and they can do that, go through the decertification or deauthorization process, and not be held up to the rules within the Constitution because they are not members, even though they're paying dues.
Yeah, and I also think, and Rick is right, and I also think that's why, in real life, even more important that the Constitution, it will be the pressure. The subtle pressure, and sometimes not so subtle pressure from other members, from the shop stewards, and from the union rep. That pressure that you don't see it, that pressure that cannot be proved. They may file you a pleas, but that pressure is that's why employees, in my opinion, sometimes, or members, in my opinion, they either withdraw petitions when they file petitions for the authorization. There's so much pressure on them, that they just quit doing it.
Well, absolutely, you're absolutely right. That's the whole other side of the coin, Amanda. We're talking about the legalities, but on the emotional, on the human side of it, you're right. The amount of pressure, especially in a unit that's important to the local or to the international, the amount of pressure that's going to be extracted on the members that are trying to decertify or deauthorize can be tremendous. The intimidation, we see it all the time in organizing campaigns, or when I was a strike coordinator or a corporate campaign coordinator. I mean, it amazes me, even to today, it amazes me how grown men and women rewind until, almost like when they're children, and they have, and the peer pressure just makes them want to run and hide in the corner. It's still, to today, it surprises me how intimidating these people, these union supporters or the union officials can be. And what's even more surprising, I mean, that doesn't surprise me so much, but what really surprises me is how beat down some people can become. And almost like the children again, and they just, I don't want to say anything bad about the union. I don't want to talk about it because I don't want pressure, and even to the point of where they get scared. They want to run out of the plant or the hospital, whatever type of facility it is. I mean, the fear and it just amazes me.
Yeah, and actually, I think just to understand this decertification process. I mean, everybody, if you ask anybody, the cardinal sin of a union member is crossing the picket line. But actually, Rick, and I don't know if you agree with me, but the decertification process actually is going to do more damage to a union than crossing the picket line. During the strike, there's more emotions involved. That's why we call it, that's a cardinal sin of a union member. For trying to decertify their own union is even worse because it's more damage for that union.
Well, I don't know if I would say that it's worse, Ahmed, because during a strike, I mean, the whole point of it, and this is why a union has to exert pressure on memberships. They have to have control of their members, because someone crossing the picket line on a strike is almost like a ball of twine unwinding, because once one person crosses the picket line and they get through it, then other people are going to do it also. So I definitely would not say it's worse, but
it's number two.
it's you know, I mean, a strike, there's too much involved, too much money involved.
Gentlemen, let me give you a couple scenarios that I would like you to try to address that I think some employees and managers may have based on certain scenarios they may face. One is you have a union member who, whether they've been in the union for a year, for 10 years, for 20, and finally they're realizing, you know what, I don't know what good they're doing for me anymore. I think I want to be union free again. And they go ahead and they either go through a deauthorization process or they try to initiate a decertification. And lo and behold, they get this phone call from the union saying, we wish to talk to you. We wish to talk to you in a trial among your peers. Explain to us how that process works. Because as a member, I'm sitting here thinking, fine, wow, a trial? I'll get myself an attorney to help represent me.
First of all, they wouldn't call you up and tell you this. You receive a registered letter. You know, either at home or at work, whatever. You receive a registered letter. It's an official legal process. And it's an internal process also, Dan, is that you're going to be, what the local that sends you, and there's got to be someone who files a complaint against you. But the local that sends you the certified letter demanding that you come to the trial, once again, it's an internal process. The executive board of that local is going to hear you out. You can bring a couple of witnesses who are also members, but there is no outside counsel that you can bring. It's completely an internal process. A couple members you can bring to try to back up your claim or your defense, but that's it. And after that hearing's over, and I've been in many of these type of hearings, as an international official overlooking whether it be on a strike a situation or other situations, and the executive board has complete control. They can listen to the testimony, they can listen to the witness, or they can choose not to. And there's no standard that they have to follow. The only standard they have to follow is protocol, is how they notify you and how they conduct the hearing. But as far as proof, there's none.